This is Paul Schneiderman today on the 60th edition of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. Today as my special guest, I have the Mariners play-by-play TV announcer Dave Sims in our studio. Dave's a longtime sports radio and TV man. Before I go further with this interview, Dave, I'm going to give you a little more of an introduction. I want to recognize my engineer today, Daniel Bellis. Daniel is the host of the Fresh Juice Show at Rainier Avenue Radio. We have a lot of good things going on at our station. We have a sports department. We have shows hosted by Rick Dupree, Granville Emerson, and Renaud Laurent hosts a great show. Lidline Sports, Masvita Marari hosts a show, Seattle Sports Weekly. We also have shows hosted by Masvita and Pat McCarthy on the Seattle Metro Sports Conference. And Mark Bryant has a really good fitness-based show, Fitness Corner. We have some good TV. We have some good news shows, political shows, music shows, a lot of great things going on our online station. Sports and Stuff Show. My show's been around now for over 2 years and a lot of fun. Most of my interviews are on Twitter. On my plsloffices.com and Mixcloud. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Well, let me get back to you, Dave. Dave Sims grew up in Philadelphia. He attended, I learned, Bethany College in West Virginia. Dave played college football and baseball. Dave started his career as a sports writer for the New York Daily News. You look at Dave's career. He's done so much play-by-play in radio, worked at ESPN, doing college basketball and college football, been a Sunday night football host. He was once the voice, I learned, of the Temple Owls.
Yeah, Temple Owls, 1990, 91, and 92. That was a lot of fun. We had one winning season, two really bad seasons, but it was a great learning
But still
experience.
Had fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe Dave is the 2019 Washington State Broadcaster of the Year.
2018. Yeah, we got the award in June down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Pretty cool.
National Sports Media Association.
That's really cool.
Thank
Dave's been with the Mariners now since about 2006 as a play-by-play guy. Well, Dave, we're going to learn more about your career and have a conversation about a whole bunch of topics. And Thank you so much for coming on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio.
My pleasure, Paul. Good to see you again.
You too, Dave. Good to see you again. Nice to meet for the second time. Well, Dave, so many people in the Pacific Northwest, other parts of the country, they know your voice, they know your face as a radio and TV guy. But tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get the bug to go into sports broadcasting?
Been around athletics all my life. My father worked at the Philadelphia Post Office, the main post office at 30th Street, where Amtrak comes through, and he worked his way up into a white collar position. Played softball. He used to take my brother and I to his softball games at Fairmount Park in Philly. He eventually ran the post office softball league and basketball league. In addition to that, Philly being a great sports town, football, baseball, basketball, hockey came along when I was in high school. We went to all the games. I got to see Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell in person.
Wow.
I got to see Jim Brown play against the Eagles. I got to see Willie Mays on a regular basis, Clemente, Aaron, that whole generation. So I've been around it all my life. I was a decent athlete in high school. 4 years baseball, letterman, 3 years football, 2 basketball. And, I was a pretty good athlete, and I said, the scouts aren't knocking down my door. If they do ring, I'll answer. But I can't remember exactly who it was, but somebody said, you know what, you can still be a part of that and be in the sports media. And I always had an affinity for broadcasters and listening to games. The typical story of the transistor radio under the pillow. The Phillies run the West Coast. You're listening to them. And, I just fell in love with it a long time ago. I fell in love with it. I had to have been 7, 8 years old, maybe even 5. And then when I figured out, I probably was early in high school in terms of trying to be in the sports media. I started writing for the newspaper when I wasn't playing ball. So, that's how that gets started. But, being from Philly, which is a great sports town.
Tough sports town, too, huh?
Very. Oh, absolutely. And I think that being from that environment was very helpful because it's a rugged business.
Dave, if you did not go the sports broadcasting career route, what do you think your career choice would have been?
I have no idea because this is what I wanted to do. It was singularly focused, tunnel vision. More of an arts and science guy than I am of the arts as opposed to the sciences.
Relate to that.
So it might have been something in that regard. Even now, over the last few years, I've done a lot of work with aspiring broadcasters, and my wife and I used to have a program before we got the Mariner job where we called Athletic Sense, and we worked with D1 athletes on the importance of knowing how to perform in front of the media and how you can make it work for you as opposed to working against you, and certain tips and things that'll get you over the hump and be successful in your presentation, win, lose, draw. And we did that for about 7 years, and the Mariner job came along.
Great little media education that you and your wife have done as well. Paul Schneiderman, host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with the Mariners television broadcaster Dave Sims. Dave, by the way, how did you get the Mariners gig in about 2006? I know you're an East Coast guy. How'd you end up here?
2007 was when I started. Yeah, but the reach out was right around Halloween of 2006. And like so many stories in this world and in this country, it's who you know. A lot of times, and it was a situation where he's now my boss, but he was Kevin Martinez was the marketing department. I think he was running the marketing department. I'd met him 20 years prior when he was a student at Syracuse with my brother-in-law, and I was doing WNBC Sports Night 5 nights a week, 7:30 to midnight when there was no games on, and they were students at Syracuse late 80s, and I did some liners for them, and that's how I met them. And I remember doing an ESPN game in like 04 in Seattle. And I said, hey, anything ever happens out here, let me know. Seattle's nice. I'd like to come out here. My wife likes it out here. So I forgot about it. And then next thing I know, I get a phone call. My brother-in-law says, hey, Kevin says you need to call. There's an opening. Ron Faley was leaving, pushed, whatever. And one thing led to another. And I got the job.
Yeah, we've had a great run here, and I think a bunch of us was kind of curious how an East Coast guy like Dave Sims ended up in Seattle with this.
Well, it's a baseball job. I mean, come on, it's a baseball job. It's one of 30 gigs in a business, and somebody offers you an opportunity to do Major League Baseball. And having grown up with Major League Baseball, playing every kind of baseball game there is, varsity in college, varsity in high school. Dice game, board games, magnetic bat games, stick ball, half ball. I mean,
Stratomatic,
any iteration of baseball. I mean, it was right in the wheelhouse.
Well, we've had a great run. Dave, I mentioned the introduction. I believe you were named in 2018 or 2019. Make sure I have the year right. There's a Washington State Sportscast of the Year. That's obviously a great career highlight. Can you mention some other career highlights that you've been really proud of in your career?
Well, I got an award from another association. It was blanking. I got the Lindsey Nelson Award for football broadcasting. And Lindsey Nelson was one of my broadcast heroes growing up. Used to always love listening to him. Sunday mornings. After a series of punts, we moved the further action in the third quarter. O.J. Simpson, the tailback, and the tail of the tandem. That whole thing. I love that guy. And there's about 20 other guys I could name who were influences at broadcasting wise, but that was one.
What was his name again?
Lindsey Nelson.
Lindsey Nelson.
Yeah, he was voice of the Mets when they won in '69. Did networks, did ABC, NBC, CBS. I got a couple of Emmys. I got an Emmy for doing Big East football in 1993. 1997, got an Emmy for doing Atlantic 10 basketball. Did the A-10 tournament at the Spectrum in Philly. So those are the ones that come to mind right now.
Great distinctions. Do you like? Is baseball your favorite sport to broadcast?
I get asked that all the time. It's the one I'm doing now, and that question, it's like asking which one of your children do you love more. They're all great. They all have, so many pluses, so many exciting moments. They're 3 different sports, and I thoroughly enjoy each and every one of them. And from 2007 to 2014, I would go right from baseball into Sunday afternoon or Sunday night football. And then right into basketball. I don't do quite that load anymore. But I've had a good run. There's no question.
Well, excuse the lack of an original question there, but I was still curious. Paul Schneiderman, again, host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with Daniel Billis as the engineer today with the Mariners TV man Dave Sims. All right, Dave. So the 2019 Major League Baseball season is not over yet. We know the Washington Nationals will be making their first World Series. We're going to see what happens in the Yankees-Astros series. Other than the Nationals making the World Series, what are some other highlights you see of the 2019 MLB season?
Well, Mike Trout continues to put up ridiculous numbers. He's the best player in baseball. At this rate, he's going to go down as probably a top 10 guy, maybe even a top 6 or 7 guy. At this stage of the year, I pretty much flush all of that and get ready for the next season. I've been enjoying the playoffs. I enjoyed the Washington run. I think I'm right on the money with Houston. I think mid-season, maybe at the three-quarter pole, I picked Houston to beat the Yankees because of their superior pitching, their starting pitching. Their bullpen's good. The Yankee bullpen's good. But the Yankees, Houston doesn't strike out. They put the ball in play. They do a lot of really good things offensively, and their depth is ridiculous. The Yankees swing for home runs probably more so than Houston, and their frontline pitching is not comparable to Houston. So I think what Houston's been able to do with their step back and rebuild has been very impressive. I think what Washington did, 19-31 at like June 1, and to come back and be in a World Series is tremendous.
Great comeback.
First World Series since 33. They haven't won one since 24. I think those are the two big things that jump out at me. I mean, you could probably go through a whole bunch of individual things, but on a macro scale, those are the ones that jump out at me.
Good highlights. It's like with sports seasons, you always kind of think of certain highlights of each season, like the NBA 2004 year or whatever, the NFL 85 year. People always think of a couple highlights per season. I think you gave me some good ones. Dave, you're one of the few African-American play-by-play commentators in baseball, and you recently were the MC or the moderator of a Mariners African-American Heritage event this year at T-Mobile Park. I watched a bunch of it online, really enjoyed it. Couple of questions I have. One, do you have any general thoughts about why there's so few African-American players and broadcasters right now?
Yeah, it's I feel like I'm in the last or next to last generation that really gives a darn about baseball. It's I hear that it's starting to change. I'll believe it when I see more kids playing D1 college baseball. See more guys getting up here to the major leagues. I hear a lot of times from kids that are very good athletes. And I know from when we did the African-American Heritage thing with the Mariners, if you're going to be a baseball player, you're going to have to ride the bus at least a year, maybe 2 years, maybe even 3. And as opposed to if you're a stud athlete in football or basketball, you can go right to the pros and make crazy money. See Kyler Murray with the Arizona Cardinals. But I think in terms of where football is right now and the injuries, particularly the injuries to the brain injuries, I would think that I'd like to think and hope that more moms and dads, and this is nothing against my friends in football, but
sure,
you look at that and you're going, and Malik Smith even said, hey, during that forum, I can play 20 years. Big Frank Thomas told me the same thing. I can play 20 years, make unbelievable money, be a part of the best union on the planet, maybe in the history of the planet, and for the most part, come out of it intact physically and mentally. Those are some interesting checkpoints there to consider. I think we got to do a much better job in baseball and projecting how cool this game is. It's different from basketball and football, but it's such a great game. I mean, I still get chills when I think about and I look at tape or video of Jackie Robinson, Mickey Mantle, Koufax, Drysdale, Gibson, Mays, that whole thing. I mean, there was a lot of cool factor there in baseball. We have to get back to that, and we have to market the game better. And I'm a big Mike Trout fan, and I know Mike a little bit. And I just want to say, dude, you got to help us promote the game, man. You got to help. You're the number one player in the game. You've got to get out there. I know I just want to play ball. I want to wake up to the sound of the ocean. I get that. I'm with you. But we need you to promote the game.
He's not a big social media guy, Mike Trout.
No. He's a great kid. Don't get me wrong. He's a great kid.
Great player, too.
I hold him in high esteem.
There's some feelings, Dave, that maybe baseball could do more to promote the game in the inner cities. They obviously do a lot in Latin America, and there's some feeling maybe Major League Baseball could do more.
Thank God for the Latin American players.
Right. So I've heard that sentiments a lot, that maybe they could get some more African-American players involved. Yeah. Dave, something else I want to ask you about is I think you mentioned this at that forum, that I think in September of this year, the M's had 10 African-American players in their roster. I think that was more than any other Major League roster.
They had by a lot.
By a lot. Is that just a coincidence or is there more to it?
You'd have to ask Jerry and those guys. I think a coincidence is probably some of it. I've not sat down and asked if that has been a direct objective, but it certainly worked out nicely that, we've got, and it's a pretty good breakdown in terms of position players. I mean, Justin Dunn, Reggie McClain, Justice Sheffield, Art Warren, and the pitching staff. You got Kyle Lewis, I mean, I could name everybody, but it works out really well. I hope a lot of those guys, if not all of them, make the team next year.
And as I told you in this interview, right before this interview started, I really enjoyed watching the Mariners in September with some of those young players. It was fun.
Yeah, you hope that their maturity grows exponentially, and their ability to adapt to the game grows quickly. The scary thing is Houston, their window is probably going to be open for another 2 years, if not 4 years. I know they're going to have some people they have to sign. A's don't seem to be going away, and it'll be interesting to see what I don't expect Joe Madden to do an immediate turnaround with the Angels, but they're going to be looking to pick things up. Ditto Texas, so it's a very competitive division.
Houston is just flat out deep.
Oh, they're so good.
I mean, really deep. Paul Schneiderman again on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with the Mariners TV man, Dave Sims. We got about 10 more minutes left or so, Daniel. So, Dave, I'm going to throw out some facts for you. The Felix Hernandez question. And you've covered him for so many years, since about 2007. All right, let me throw out some stats. So an incredible 2009 through 2014 stats line and starts ERA, 36 all-time in strikeouts at 2,500, sixth youngest player to get to 2,500 strikeouts, six-time All-Star. Give me a couple more stats I'm going to give you. Cy Young Award winner, finished in the top 10 5 other times, 10 seasons where he pitched 190-plus innings, many quality pitching starts that were losses or no decisions.
Yeah.
I believe he ranks right around with Warren Spahn, the number of non-win quality starts. So does Felix have a Hall of Fame case?
Oh, yeah, he's got a case. I mean, I'm not a voter. And these days, they really take a microscope to all the numbers. And I think that a lot of those things that you just read, and I think of the dominance, those non-wins, those great quality starts, and I think it was, I can remember him going 7-8 innings and losing games. I mean, I think he's got, 169 career wins. He should easily have 215, 230. That might hurt him, but then on the flip side, his 13-12 record, I think it was the year he won the Cy, was because of all the numbers that they took to the nth level, and which showed that his dominance during the course of that year. And I think it was was it the year before? I think Greinke won it one year, and even Greinke, I thought he was going to, that Felix was going to win it. And I remember another year, Kluber won it, and Kluber thought Felix was going to win. I mean, Felix could easily have 3 Cy Youngs.
Right.
Easily.
Good points.
Easily.
So another part of this question I ask you is, okay, Koufax had about 6 really good years, and I'm not comparing necessarily Felix to Koufax.
Please don't.
No, I'm not. But Koufax had 6 really good years. Felix had some, 5 or 6, 7 good years too. Would Felix's case be better if he had retired like at Koufax, age 31 or so?
No, I don't think so. I don't think, because you look at some of Koufax's years, he went 27-3 one year, something ridiculous like that. With a sub 2.3 ERA. I mean, I don't think you can't put Felix in that same conversation. I don't think.
Fair enough.
Those 6 years that Koufax had were just ridiculous. I mean, his winning percentage, he was 8? He had to have been 800 plus in all 6 of those years. And I think one year, 25-5, 27-3, 26-7. I mean, just incredible numbers.
I'm thinking back that old line, the 1988 vice presidential debate, when Lloyd Benson said to Dan Quayle, "You're no Jack Kennedy." Felix, you're no. That's a
you're no Sandy Koufax. With all due respect,
all due respect, yeah. Still, though, I think there's a little bit of a loose analogy there. That because you got some players in sports like Gale Sayers played like 5 or 6 good years.
Hall of Famer. I think he only played like 90 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just food for thought. Well, I'd like to see Felix in the conversation one day.
Oh, he's definitely going to be in the conversation. There's no question about that.
Okay, so the general manager, Sal Mariners, who I was on my show in late August, Jerry DiPoto, he came up with a line that he wants to reimagine the roster. You watch the Mariners in spring training, 162 games a year. Do you like this whole step-back plan? Do you think it's the right plan for the future?
I hope it speeds up. I know from my thought, and I know when I spoke with Nelly Cruz, when Nelly came in May, I guess it was, and I said, "What was your story?" He said, "Did you want to stay here?" He says, "Yeah, I wanted to stay here. Love it here." He said he thought they'd get 1 or 2 more pieces to the 89 win club from the 18 season and go forward from there, give it one more shot, then maybe break it up. And that was my thought, even before I spoke with Nelly. So you hope it works.
Yeah.
I hope it works. I mean, you know as well as I do, you draft 10, 12 guys. You're lucky if 2 make it.
Right.
And you're lucky if one's a superstar. So there's a lot of hope involved here. And at some point, there's got to be at least one or two additions of, top end, high end quality. You just can't have a bunch of middle of the road guys. You got to have at least one alpha dog, if not two. And right now, there's no alpha dog on this club. And competing against Houston, I mean, you look at that. I mean, George Springer leads off in counting the playoffs. He's got, as we record this, 41 home runs. You kidding me? Come on.
Yeah, it really is a mismatch in the AL West in many ways. I don't follow it as close as you do, Dave. I'm more of a casual fan. But when I saw that Cleveland had 93 wins this year and didn't make the wild card, it kind of sent a message to some fans that we'd have another 87, 88 win season with the roster, similar roster we had last year, and the same thing would have happened. When last year, I refer to the 2018 team.
Yeah, we Mariners won 89 games in 18. I mean, this year was 68 and 94.
Right.
So the question is what Cleveland won. Cleveland had a bad stretch, and they came on and contended late, and they had a lot of pitching injuries. But was it the Plesac kid? Clevenger came back. What's the kid's name? The Bieber kid pitched well. So they had some surprising developments in that regard. Lindor was out for a long time. Ramirez didn't hit till late. So.
I may have not articulated that point or question a minute ago. I was just making the point that I don't know if the M's would have gotten 95-plus wins if they left the roster intact from 2018.
I mean, we'll never know. I mean, I wouldn't have expected Diaz to come back with 57 saves again, but I also expected Nelly to do pretty much what he did this year with the 40. He had almost 40 home runs, had his best slugging percentage of his career. Cano got hurt. Paxton had some tough times, but he had some dominant times. I just thought, for my money, I could see a step back, a reimagining, whatever you want to call it. I could see that in the future, but I just thought they would give it one more shot.
Gotcha. A lot of people have those same opinions, Dave. It's obviously a judgment call. Dave, you covered a team this year that went 68-94, but let me ask this question. Do you think in some respects, as a broadcaster, do you feel any more freedom and creativity covering a losing team in some weird ways than a winning team?
I don't know, but freedom and creativity. Yeah, you definitely have to dig deep. I mean, the way I look at it, and I've done games. That's the end of the third quarter here in Morgantown, West Virginia. The Mountaineers lead at 66-0 over Rutgers. You have to have done, as Bill Parcells would say, you have to shop for the groceries. You got to do your backgrounds. You got to go into the clubhouse. You got to talk to guys. You got to get little tidbits, little stories, anecdotes, not only in your clubhouse but in the other clubhouse. So you have stuff to talk about. I mean, you can't sit there and beat on your home team that's not getting it done. That's not going to work. And he also can't go radio silent. So the way I look at it, before the game, I do my due diligence, talking to the manager, listen to what he has to say, talk to a few guys so I can catch some guys around a batting cage and then catch some guys in the other clubhouse and talk to the other broadcasters. I mean, you have to go around and you're culling information all the time.
I love that Parcells find your groceries line, but
you got to shop. You got to shop.
Shop your groceries.
Let me shop for the groceries and make it happen. Yeah.
I love that, but I guess you kind of have to fish a little more though, when the team isn't playing as well for stories and so on.
Yeah. I've done it for so long, I'm used to it now. So it's just part of my process.
Sure.
I don't even think about it. And the other thing, I'd like to think I've got natural curiosity and my newspaper background. And I mean, I was lucky enough to be recruited by and work with, and not super closely, but certainly being his influence was Dick Young, one of the great columnists. I mean, I know politically
hard-hitting columnist.
Yeah, hard-hitting, and politically we were diametrically opposed. But the way he did his job. The way he pursued this job and pursued information was something, and that was one thing I took away.
I read years ago Dick Young and Howard Cosell did not like each other.
Yeah, that's an understatement. That's a whole other show. Yeah,
right,
you could get Howard's grandson Colin to talk about that probably. There's still some old timers older than I am. I can tell you about that. Yeah.
Fun stories. Paul Schneiderman, if you're just tuning in on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with the Mariners TV man, Dave Sims. Dave, you've interviewed many people in the baseball and sports worlds. I mean, if I ever have you back, I'm sure we could just tell stories about the interviews you've done. Who's someone that you have not interviewed that you love to interview?
Real easy. We talked about him earlier. Sandy Koufax. I have not. I mean, I got it. It wasn't an on-air interview. Actually, I stole a newspaper guy, but I talked to Don Drysdale, got a picture with him at the 1980 Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium. I've interviewed Willie Mays multiple times. Hank Aaron. One time we were at, he was on Letterman's show when I was at WNBC, and he was at Letterman's show upstairs on the 6th floor. And I went upstairs, and I said, "Where's Mr. Aaron going to be coming out?" He says, "See the door over there, wait for him right there." And I like almost tackled him and said, "Mr. Aaron, I do a radio talk show downstairs. Could he come down?" He gave me a half hour. It was great.
What a great guy to interview, Hank Aaron.
Yeah, it was tremendous. Bart Giamatti, I had him on a couple, 3 times. He was a lot of fun. The late commissioner of baseball, he must have died shortly thereafter. I mean, I could sit here all day talking about some of the great people I've had a chance to interview. So
just love to get Koufax on one day.
Yeah, that would be the one.
I don't know if you'd ever come on my little show either, but
yeah.
Great names. Well, Dave, we got less than a minute left. Just so much fun to have a little schmooze fest with you, and thank you so much for doing this on RainierAvenueRadio.world. What does the future hold for Dave Sims?
Well, I just had a wedding anniversary, my 37th, and I want to keep that going, and just onward and upward. We're hopefully the Mariners are going to turn this thing around at some point.
Looking for the 2020 season?
Absolutely.
Spring training's not that many months away either.
Well, I'm not. I need a blow here, but yeah, I hear you. It'll be here before you know it.
Well, Dave, enjoy the Baseball World Series this year, and a lot of fun to have you on Rainier Avenue Radio, and let's you and I stay in touch.
Yeah, you bet, Paul. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dave.
Enjoyed it.